and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right, it's 6 o'clock and call to order the Board of School Trustees of Brown County. Is there any modifications to the agenda?
There are no modifications to the agenda.
Going to recognize visitors and comments from the audience. All right, we'll have a presentation.
Yeah, I'm excited tonight to be able to introduce Mr. Sharoman and Mr. Steele, and I know Mrs. Roberts is here in support as well. There has been a lot of work that has gone in to talk about high school redesign and a potential schedule for the high school next year, and also like how that would potentially impact middle school in the future as well. So really, really proud of this team, and I can honestly say in 3.5 years to see the collaboration between 6th through 12th grade has been just amazing, and this is just another step towards that. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sharoman and get excited.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And Mr. Steele, I was a little panicked when you weren't here. Thought it was like a new guy initiation. So I'll just apologize before I start because I am a former music teacher, and when you give a music teacher a music stand and a microphone, like, get comfortable. Mrs. Tracy said keep it brief, so I will. Okay. But first of all, I wanted to just, if you would, just set the stage at the work that we've done this year. And really, it began several years ago in the state of Indiana, 2017, 18, with looking at the way we're doing high school. And then last year, here more specifically to Brown County schools, the high school, as you know, did a lot of work in looking at schedules. And so what I want to do is talk a little bit about the work that was done, both at the state level and the high school level, a little bit about where we're at now, and then where we want to go, okay? So if I could just indulge you in a minute, I would just like to set the stage a little bit and hope everything works here, okay? Mr. Steele said I can't have a presentation unless I have a video, so I've got
The idea that we have a certain amount of ability, intelligence, and talent, that idea holds us back, because when we don't succeed, we think, oh, I guess I don't have the ability, the talent, the intelligence to be successful at this. And that fixed mindset always comes out when you're vulnerable, when you're out of your comfort zone, when you have criticism or setbacks, or when someone else is really successful much more than you are. So what are you going to do about that?
I want to start with this idea about this fixed mindset, right? Like, in a lot of ways in education, we do things the way we've just done them for 100 years because that's what we've done. And so what I'm going to ask us to do as a community, and I've asked our staff to do this, is to really have a growth mindset when we're looking at this. It puts us in the position of being vulnerable. It says that it is okay that we know that what we're doing was good for a while, but maybe we need to make some adjustments moving forward, and that we don't always have to have every single answer right now. But it is a community of people who deeply care for kids. It is okay to walk through this as a process. And I would just encourage us to look at what we're going to propose this evening with that kind of mindset, okay? And if we don't have a growth mindset, we turn into this, right? And I like to reference this often. We all know what happened to Blockbuster. They were everywhere, right? People were renting movies and DVDs, and they saw this whole world of streaming coming and did nothing about it. They were not adaptable. I think it's fair to say that the company managers, Blockbuster, didn't operate with a growth mindset. And so they no longer exist, right? And I think in education, we don't want to turn into a Blockbuster, all right? So the state decided that we should revisit how we're doing high school a long time ago, and came up with some key things that they were thinking about. Fewer Indiana students were enrolling in what was like traditional college. Kids, after talking with industry, weren't graduating with the skills that companies needed them to have. So they could have this, academic mastery, but no skills that went along with that. And so, they were finding out that new employees were very knowledgeable, but didn't know how to apply those skills in that real world situation. A little bit about kids who were looking at enlisting. We're finding out that they were disqualified based on a lot of things, including their physical state. Like they couldn't do that. And of course, student apathy is getting more and more noticeable, right? Like that connection to what they're doing in the Monday after high school seems to be more disconnect.
And Steve, I would just say, this is framework around the high school. So you'll see like students' apathy is high, leading to high rates of chronic absenteeism in grades 9 through 12. It is across the board. This is not a 9 through 12 issue. If you ask elementary folks, it's an elementary thing. If you ask middle school, anybody across the state, everyone is fighting this. And so we're kind of focused, you'll see 9 through 12 today as we focus on this, but know that this is not just a high school issue.
And so why do we need to look at high school? This is some data that the state put together several years ago, and it's been presented in the state board at meetings quite frequently. But check out this here. Indiana ranks #1 nationwide in terms of students completing at least one college course in high school. So that's important. 6 durable skills, this is important, right? If you look at our graduate profile, it's over there on the wall, we've identified those things as being important at Brown County High School. And so the whole idea behind high school redesign is is adequately preparing kids for the Monday after high school with not just academic mastery, but the skills that go along with that. And so we said it's just not working. And so the state, as you know, adopted a new high school diploma requirement this year, and so we're going to get into those a little bit. But here's the reality of our economy. You see this ratio of 1 to 2 to 7. So in the current job market, for every master's degree job, there are, to go along with it, 2 bachelor level degree jobs. And that go along with that are 7 jobs that are correlated to something that needs a credential of value, some kind of post-secondary training. And so look at the numbers. Where is the heaviest area of need? It is those 7. That ratio is not changing, right? So it really tells us as educators, we can't just focus on academic mastery, we have to do the stuff that goes along with that. And most jobs now require some form of training beyond high school. And so what we're asking you to do is think differently about the word college. College just doesn't mean a 4-year university anymore. Well, that is very important, and we have a certain group of kids here who are 4-year university bound, and they are being well prepared. What about the other 80%? Right? It is our goal to get them equally as prepared for what they choose to do. So this college redefined, from at least my perspective, and I think several others in this room, college is anything after high school, any kind of preparation after high school, whether it be a training program, an apprenticeship, anything after high school, we are going to lump into this world of college. Okay? And so we want kids to understand what it takes for them to do what they want to do in life. Understand the education that goes along with what their goals are, and their hopes and their dreams. And that experiences do matter, especially in the current state of our economy, right? The more prepared we can help kids be, the better off they will be when they move beyond us. I think you've heard it over and over. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to be at Brown County High School, is because we don't do things status quo here. I have seen for years high schools under-preparing kids in all this other stuff, and one of the great things about Brown County High School is we focus on that, right? It's not one or the other, it's both and here. And that is unique in education. Credentials of value, you'll see later on that the new diploma does create space for kids to walk across our graduation stage as they look at the week after high school. and create space for them to achieve credentials of value in the area that they want to pursue vocationally beyond this. And so the new diploma incorporates that. Mr. Steele, is there anything you want to say here?
Just this point about the level of education, we have the work that we are doing with students learning their RISEC and their work in Be Able and spending time in that platform, even at a kindergarten up through the middle school. Kids are learning more details about careers now than they ever have, right? So my own 2 kids are coming home talking about careers that they learned about. And it's not just exposing them to careers, which is important, but at the middle school, kids are starting to learn, like, this is what I'm going to have to do for these certain jobs. Whether that's what I want to do or not, they have the knowledge of knowing what to expect after high school. So again, focusing on high school, but this is already starting to trickle down through the middle school and even into the elementaries, which is really cool to see.
And I will acknowledge right now the work that our elementary administrators do in leading this work in their buildings. And then Gavin following up at the middle school level. This is, I think, our elementary schools do a really good job of this, right? If there is an area of growth, I have to be quite honest, it's probably at the high school level, right? We are already doing some great things kind of in pockets. You know, Eagle Manufacturing, they're doing great things, right? Biomed, Mr. McFall, they're doing great things. But there is a connection for what's happening in those spaces to what's happening in our core classrooms as well. And for the sake of our students, right, isn't it work that we continue that work where that foundation is laid in the elementary years? So the high school diploma is kind of broken down into 3 sections. And if you've heard this before, I apologize, but I'm assuming you've had conversations about this, but there are 3 sections. So there's the credit piece. Kids have to get so many credits to graduate. You've heard that. You've heard that for years, right? That Carnegie unit, they've got to get 40 credits in order to graduate, okay? And there is the competencies that they need demonstrated in, and then employability skills. So those 3 buckets, if you will, are required now to have a student graduate. And so it's kind of changed over the years, several different forms. The Core 40 has kind of always been consistent. And so in the new high school diploma, the Core 40 goes away, but its agenda of preparing kids for kind of university is still there, along with some other things. So we're going to talk a little bit about these 3 areas for high school. This is a side-by-side comparison of the old Core 40, and you probably can't see that well. I have some handouts for you, and I don't know if you all got them. Did you all get a copy of this? If not, I can pass them down. There you go.
Yes.
And so just to make sure we're clear, the legislators said the high school diploma must be redesigned. They gave a timetable. It was December of last year that the rule had to be approved by. It was approved. And so this is it, right? The decision has been made by leaders in our state. And so the future Indiana high school diploma, that's the right side on your handout, that is our new diploma beginning with our current 8th graders, okay? Our current 8th graders. So high school kids now returning operate underneath the previous formula. There is some space for them to jump over this new diploma if they're ready to do that. And that's kind of a case-by-case situation. We're still waiting on some guidance from the DOE about how that might work. But if you would look, the diploma, it looks kind of the same. There's a lot of flexibility, and I won't go through every single one of these categories, but there is, they wanted to create more flexibility for our high school students so we could personalize their educational experience. And so this whole conversation about flexibility and less requirements ended up in a diploma that now has 2 more requirements on it credit-wise, which is kind of funny. But if you look down here, in the 12 credits of electives is really where the personalization and individualization is built into this diploma. I think it's important, as we take kids through their high school experience, that we treat them as the unique individuals that they are, right? Don't they deserve that? They are who they are with their own strengths, interests, and values. And this new diploma model allows us to better serve kids in the context of who they are and where they want to be and what they want to do. So There's flexibility in terms of credits, so let's just take math for example. So the traditional math pathway was Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. If you're on Core 40, that's what you had to take. I don't know that every student needs to have Algebra 2 in order to be successful in that. And the state agreed. And so they said, well, certainly for many of your kids that are college bound, that might be important to have, right? So that's still there. But the state's asked us to come up with some other options for kids to fulfill that math requirement. So maybe it's a business math or math related to financial management. The state's required us in this new diploma to offer computer science. And so I'm happy that Cinnamon's here tonight for computer science. So there'll be a semester of computer science required for all students in the new diploma. Financial literacy is another piece that's required for all students. We have asked that question forever, right? They can have all the academic mastery that they can have, and then they get to college, or they move out of their parents' home, or they go to trade school and they can't manage their checkbook. So the state said, hey, that's important. Now it's funny because they said you don't have to teach economics anymore, just financial literacy. At Brown County High School, through talking with our teams here, we think teaching economics is important still. And so we're going to try to put those two together so kids get both in. So financial literacy becomes part of economics, it already is anyways, right? But there's a way for us to kind of structure how that credit works to give kids both credits. On top of just the general diploma, for lack of a better term, the base diploma, there are these things called seals. And that would be kind of the basic diploma and then some. Most of the seals, the Honor Seal and the Honor Seal Plus, require a certain level of work-based learning in order to earn those seals. So what the state has said is that it is important that you equip kids with these competencies as they look at life after high school, but in order to really drive it home, we're going to create a diploma requirement for these seals where it's actually embedded in that requirement. So 75 hours is the minimum number of hours. At Brown County High School, after collaborating with our staff, we think that it's our obligation to equip students with a seal as a minimum. Okay? And that's huge. So let me equate that back to what you probably are familiar with. The general diploma and the Core 40 diploma both lead to a high school diploma, right? Core 40 is that college bound and prepared there. That would kind of be translated to our seals now. We believe that every student here is capable of earning a seal. So that's what we are going to set as the minimum standard. Okay? I think that speaks a lot to the wisdom of our teachers and our staff as they work with our kids on an individual basis. We know they are capable, but more importantly than being capable, they are deserving of that opportunity. And so we are going to create a schedule that allows kids to achieve those seals. Okay? So, 3 parts of the diploma. The first part, they must earn the right number of credits, 42 credits under the new diploma, beginning with our current 8th graders. So the diploma is kind of the foundation. You will see then there's the Honor Seal and the Honor Seal Plus. I put our eagle there because that's where our kids deserve to be, the seal. Okay? I think as we look at post-secondary success, I told you that this idea of college is changing. Here are some ways that it changes, right? Of course, college is still there, university, but technical school, 2-year schools, apprenticeships, service to our country, or entering the workforce directly. Every student, by earning a seal, will be prepared to be successful in one of those areas. So which diploma is best for me? We'll walk with our 8th graders and their parents through this process later on in February, and we will talk to them about their strengths, their interests, and their values, and help them figure out kind of what path they want to go down. Are they looking at enrollment, employment, or enlistment as their destination when they leave the high school? And then we will craft an educational experience for them that is in line with their strengths and their interests and their values. The Enrollment Honor Seal Plus, talk just a little bit about this. This would be for folks who had questions about the Core 40, the Academic Honors Diploma. It's still there, right, and through the seal. So it's more rigorous, and it would encapsulate more courses and dual credit offerings, so kids can walk away maybe at a minimum with the Indiana College Core, a set of 30 transferable college credits. We already have many of those offered here. Of course, we're partners with IU. We also partner with Ivy Tech. And so there is a world that exists where many of our kids can walk away with the first year of college and then some already under their belt, if that's the path they choose to go. The Employment Honor Seal Plus talks about combining rigor in the coursework that is there for every other student, but also it connects to the relevance of their experience outside of our building in terms of their work experience while they're here. This prepares students to go on to like an associate's degree or pursue a credential of high value. Students in this world gain skills that are helpful to them as they go out into the world in terms of employment. And I think that gets back to our conversation. You've heard me say several times these competencies, the skills that go along with this academic knowledge. Okay. The second box, the second bucket that kids need to attain while they're in high school, they need to demonstrate employability skills. So it was one thing for us to hear from industry, and I think Indiana did a really good job at partnering with industry, but it's now embedded into the high school diploma. They can be in one of three areas: project-based, service-based, or work-based. For us, after talking with our students and stakeholders, there is a heavy focus on this work-based learning experience. Right? It's a direct connection on what they're doing when they leave this place. There are opportunities in project and service-based learning, but we've built a schedule that we want to show you tonight that is really focused on a student's ability to get out into the world in an area that they find relevant, to start giving them that real-world experience, and sometimes even be paid for it. How cool is that? So this is that box 2, the employability skills. You will notice that the second point here, talking about communication, responsibility, working with others, that is in direct alignment with our graduate profile. And I also think it's in alignment with these competencies. And so it's really nice to see a diploma that's bringing the work that's been done in this district together. This district is an innovator, there's no doubt about it. And now we see that the proof is in the pudding, when Indiana says here's now the diploma requirements that precisely line up with what we've been led to value in this community. When kids complete these experiences, they do have to write about them. That's part of the requirement. They do have to process that. Our hope, as we build out our 912 program, is that kids are able to talk about this experience before they leave us. And we want them to own their educational journey and connect the dots. And so we want to create space for them to do that. We're going to do it in a class, so we're going to support them as they develop that. But we almost want them to defend their educational journey. And walking across the stage is not the destination for us. We care deeply about what happens to our students after that. Then I think you've probably heard it for a long time, that Monday after high school, right? So the third bucket that kids need to kind of be assessed in is this post-secondary readiness. And that's, you can check that box several different ways with some standardized testing. But I think the state is still looking to broaden what that is. Right now, the testing rubric at the high school level is the SAT. We know that not every student is college bound. And so I'm not quite sure why we use that test to measure the whole other 80%. But there are some other options there. Earning the Indiana College Core would be an option, and the amount of dual credit or AP courses that kids take. So that's still super important. Apprenticeships would fulfill that requirement as well. So lots of options there. But if you'll notice, everything that the state has said that we can use to measure that, all is looking at time after high school. Okay. Any questions so far? It's a lot, I know.
And where's the schedule?
Yeah. Box 6, college and career readiness. We won't go over this. I talked a little bit about that. If you want to know more about that, we can do that. Let's jump into the schedule. So last year, just bring you up to speed, my understanding, I'm new here, obviously, I've not been here. But when I met with the leadership team, they talked about this schedule work that had been done last year. So I asked them to kind of bring me up to speed and fill me up, and they have done a tremendous job. My understanding is that last year, it was quite a thorough process. It took a year. There were many meetings and community input sought, and there were several different iterations of proposed high school, right? And we kind of identified as a team, like, why was there always one more iteration of the schedule? And it was that we were trying to capture everybody's wish list, right? We know with as many students as we have here, that it's not possible in any situation to capture everyone's full wish list, right? But I think that speaks a lot about our community, is that was the goal, to do that. And so their vision was to really pour in to kids at an individual level, right? That's what this is here, summarized really briefly. To treat kids as individuals and help them explore their strengths, their interests, and their values. If you looked at our school data, it wasn't lining up with that goal, right? And so there were kids maybe that are disengaged from their own learning experience, right? Like they don't get the why behind it. They're struggling to connect the dots. Why am I in this class, or why am I taking this? How is this relevant to me towards the day after high school? How does this align with who I am as a person? And so the team last year really dove into that. And identified that maybe a 7-period day or an 8-period day counting SRT is not what's best for kids. And if you look at industry, industries that are successful are also ones that are willing to step outside of the box and be innovative and creative with the way that they deliver their service to the community and their stakeholders. So we thought that we could do that at the high school level. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the work that happened last year, because there was a ton of it. As Gavin and I talked about a high school schedule, we really kind of focused on some of these big ideas that were driving this work. Number one, the collaboration that we have as a small school district. The opportunities to collaborate K-12 is what sets us, I think, apart from districts around us. We are sandwiched between several large districts, and I don't know that they have the ability to be as personalized as we have here. I don't know that in those larger districts, they have the ability to sit with leaders in other grade levels and talk about what we want high school kids to leave us with. I value our elementary school principals' take on what that looks like. They led a very substantial part of those kids' formative years, right? And so now at Brown County High School, or in our school district, they have a seat at the table. I know that doesn't happen in larger districts, right? And here we have that ability. And we think that we can focus on our values of building small school relationships through doing something different. We think that the key to our success as a school district is the time outside of school, kids being involved and connected to something other than their classroom. And so creating space for them to do that, to be part of our music programs and our athletic programs and our clubs, that is important. But we all know the kids that do that are the kids that generally do several things. And then we slam all this work at them and say, you've got to do now 5 hours of homework after getting home from a game that you traveled 4 hours on a bus for there and back. Like at what point are we providing a disservice for kids by not doing something different? And so we've really worked collaboratively to create a schedule, I think, that is going to allow kids to have a little bit more say in what they do and a little bit more time in the day to do it, so they can participate in this high school experience. Gavin, did you want to say anything about this?
Just that as we talked through it, right, that we came to the realization that maybe the middle school schedule doesn't look exactly the same as the high school schedule, because there's things that we do want to accomplish at the middle school that's different than what you are accomplishing at the middle school, right? So as you were talking about kind of structuring your day, one of the things that I think is really amazing that we have support in doing at the middle school is that every 7th grader does take a computer science class. 8th graders are able to take computer science, right? The state's mandating that high school takes a year of it. Our kids are already getting a semester of it. Our kids are already getting that at the middle school level, and even younger than that in the work that they're doing in PLTW in their science courses, right? Our kids are already taking finance at the middle school and entrepreneurship at the middle school. So, you know, as Mr. Sharon and I were talking through like what this schedule might look like, you know, we said, well, what does it look like if our schedules are different, and how do we get creative in making that work between the two of us as we share staff? And so that's what we've done, is said, all right, we still want students at the middle school level to experience all of these opportunities, to give them an idea of what they may want to do when they go to high school, and try to flood them with every possible option. And so the high school schedule is shaping up to look different than what we would run, that we will run at the middle school. And then it's on us to figure out how we work together with our shared staff.
And so this is kind of the evolution of all that work last year and our conversations this year around what's best for kids. And I can't say it enough. The only thing that led every conversation was what's best for kids. We as adults will figure out the nuts and bolts. We will figure out how to get out of their way so they can have the best experience possible. And so I don't know that it really has a name other than you could call it like a hybrid block schedule, and because of this Wednesday. So let me walk you through what our day will look like next year. So you will see at the very top there's Monday and Thursday, then Wednesday's in the middle, and Tuesday and Friday are on the end. So kids would be blocked in 8 classes. So their periods 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be 87 minutes, and they will take that class on Monday and Thursday. Their periods 5, 6, 7, and 8, they will take on Tuesday and Friday for 87 minutes. 4 classes a day. On Wednesday, they will see every teacher once. Okay, and there's a reason for that. And we talked about those work-based learning hours. As we talk to industry, and I'm glad that Megan's here, part of that work-based learning experience is being out in the workforce. Well, we are kind of stuck here geographically, right? Like in order for our kids to get somewhere that's relevant to what they want to do, they may have to drive. Not everything is on Main Street downtown, right? So in order for our seniors and some of our juniors to get off campus for that real world experience, we've created a schedule where on Wednesdays, they don't have to be in this building if they are doing that real world work-based learning experience. So let's say I want to go into the medical profession. I've been connected with a physician in Columbus who has allowed me to shadow on those days. I can go work an 8-hour shift with that physician. Now I will tell you, I think that 8-hour shift is a closer resemblance of what it will be like in the workforce rather than going for an hour, right? And that's our goal, to give kids real world experiences. If we have a student who is looking at some kind of job in machining or manufacturing, and the best place for them is a company near Greenwood. In this schedule, they would be able to go and experience that hands-on, right? If we don't offer this, they are locked into Nashville. And I don't think that's what's best for kids. This model is run in schools in our area and in our state with a lot of success. Their data, attendance, connection, graduation rates, very high. Because kids are engaged in their own learning. You will see that up there, first period, Mondays and Thursdays, is a course called Eagle Seminar. I want to just spend just a minute and talk to you about Eagle Seminar. Eagle Seminar is a course that came out of this idea that we really want to connect the exploration of kids' strengths, interests, and values to every bit of work that we do in this building. And so that is a 4-year journey that our students would experience with a team of teachers. Our idea is that the group of teachers would be able to loop with them so they can really pour into the relationships with kids and get to know them at a deeply personal level. That is the work where we help kids explore their RIASEC, their strengths, interests, and their values. It is a place where we connect that exploration to what they're doing in the classroom. It is a place where we build the capacity of the student section at our games, to be honest with you. It is a place where they build community with one another. We can't just do school here. High school is so much more than academic mastery. We have to meet kids where they're at. And my observations in just one semester is that many of our kids, the bell rings at 3 o'clock and they go. This gives them a reason to stay connected. and it gives our teachers an opportunity to build those relationships. I think when we pour in intentionally into that there in the Eagle Seminar, we are going to see the climate and the culture of this building do a 180. And I've talked to people who graduated from here 20 years ago, right? And you remember when there was no room in the student section somewhere, right? You remember when people were doing cool, crazy things, right? Mrs. Roberts and I worked really hard this year to build relationships with kids. And our staff are asking for the time to do the same thing. And so we think it's important. The cool thing is that we can code that class to meet diploma requirements. So freshmen will code it as PCC, Preparing for College and Careers. That's a high school requirement now. So we can code it there. Maybe senior year, we code it as a communications course. That was one of the requirements. As they prepare to defend their education for us, talk to us about their journey before they leave, we can give them credit for that experience. So I think it's a pretty powerful opportunity that we have here.
Will only juniors and seniors be allowed to leave on Wednesdays?
Yeah, so that work-based learning is really tied in their academic progress to the junior and senior year.
We have a few sophomores that have internships, but I don't know how far away those internships are, and it is a very small number of sophomores that have that. So I hate to always say a very hard line, like we want to find the yes, but primarily, mostly, it's juniors and seniors. And I would also add to that, just because it is 8 hours of the day, doesn't mean that experience has to be for 8 hours, right?
Sure.
Like, it's really up to the partner, the industry partner, and the school district to be
Yep.
able to make something work for them. So I just didn't want you to think they're going out for a full 8 hours. Maybe, but maybe not.
With the schedule that was kind of talked about a year ago, I remember seeing something similar. Was any of that implemented in this year's schedule?
Yeah, so this schedule is really the result of all those schedules.
Okay.
And then I came in with a fresh set of eyes, and I just noticed some things in some of the old schedules, like there was not equity, for example, in instructional minutes between the courses. That was important to me, right? Like, we needed to find equity, so we weren't mathematically valuing another class more than another, right? So that was important. Our team was able to make that work. And Eagle Seminar, in that Eagle Seminar is an opportunity for kids to explore their passion areas as well. And that was something that was discussed last year, and we think it's important for kids to take ownership of their learning experience, right? Is to help them explore their areas of passion. And this schedule allows for that, not quite to the extreme that some of the schedules in the past have had, but this would be like every other week, for 1 day a week, for half that period, 45 minutes to an hour. Every other week would be a time for kids, all kids in our building, to explore their passion areas. I think that's important, right? Like, that's our job, is to help them explore who they are. And so there's an opportunity for them to do that in this, while maintaining the integrity of the instruction.
How about the ones that are gonna go over to Columbus?
This schedule allows for it. Yep,
Okay.
they'd still be able to go, and the C4 kids
Yeah.
still absolutely be able to do that.
Okay.
Yep.
And the hope is that we recruit, we build out programming that keeps more and more of them
Right,
here.
yeah.
That we're not sending as,
Yeah.
right? And I think I'm fair to say, like, we have amazing opportunities with C4, and there are going to be things that we will probably never be able to offer here. But the more we can offer here and keep those kids here is beneficial to us, right? Like, our partnership is great, and it's certainly things that they will offer that we won't be able to, but hopefully in the coming years, we can bring some programming that allows more and more kids to stay.
And that's, our team has talked about that, and Ms. Tracy's been really open in those conversations, like looking for ways to meet our kids where they're at, whether that's expanding programs or creating new programs. And I'll go back to how we started, right? It takes a growth mindset, no matter what we're doing, right? Whether it's looking at the future in academics, preparing kids for Monday after high school, or any other conversation that centers around kids. It is easy for us to get stuck kind of in this narrow mindset. But I think in order for us to serve kids well, it takes the adults to get out of comfort zone and think outside of the box. I'm proud that our staff kind of landed on this together. In full transparency, we will have early adopters here that will get on board with this really quickly. There are other staff members that will struggle with this, right? Like let's just address it now. When you go from 45 minutes to teaching 87 minutes, one of the issues that will come up is how do I plan for that? And so this semester, we're gonna build out options for teachers to come to receive some training in how do you make that shift. We're gonna support our teachers through this journey. You talk about a child maybe that struggles with emotional regulation during a class period. They're still gonna have that same struggle, whether it's in a 45-minute class or an 87-minute class. But it's our job to come alongside them and help equip them as they transition in. Okay? I'm super excited, Gavin. Thank you for being a partner. It has been really refreshing to have such a collaborative approach, all our administrators and our leadership team. Debbie's been a great thought partner as well, and I appreciate that. It really does take a village, and I'm grateful for the village that is here at Brown County Schools.
Just one other thing I'd like to share. So we presented this to a high school superintendent ambassador group last Thursday?
Last Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. And one of the really neat things that kind of tugs at your heartstrings is, so Mr. Schroman was talking about Eagle Seminar and kind of empowering student work in this area. And so students start talking, and then they're like, would there ever be a world where we could use this time to build relationships with middle school kids so that they have a better feeling about coming to the high school as freshmen? Is there a world where maybe some of that Eagle Seminar time, we're down with them during whatever their first period class is, partnering with them, just getting to know them, working with whatever they're working on, so that when they come to the high school, they have familiar faces. And it was like, yes, I think that's a great idea.
I think we did hear a lot of affirmation from
A
the
lot.
kids, right? Like,
Kids, I spend, it's one of my, I have 2 favorite days of every month, and it's when I get to be with the student ambassadors, and then when I get to be with the adult ambassadors, right? Like, because we get to talk about so much of our county schools, and I spent a lot of time with those kids, and a lot of time on high school redesign, and the way we like just dream big, like what if school looked different, and they want school to look different, like 7 periods, 45 minutes every day, like you've been talked about, and then extracurricular and a job or home, and whatever that looks like for every individual kid is doing an immense disservice to their mental health, and they will be the ones that say that to us. I think it's time that we listen to them, and it's okay that school looks different. I am incredibly excited about this schedule. I support it. I am proud of it. I think it is going to open the door to do some pretty incredible things for our kids, middle school and high school. So for whatever that's worth.
So how does this intersect with the middle school schedule? Because I know you've got some staff and students who cross over.
Yeah, so it's all about planning our periods to mesh up with their block periods. And so that's what I was talking about earlier, right? Now that's on us to figure out the logistics, because we want to continue to provide opportunities for the students at the middle school. And we can't, we can't teach everything at the middle school without the help of the high school. And so the collaborative work that Steve and I have done and laid out if they come down 5th and 6th, then that'll be the double block of this time, and then it'll allow it to work out. So working with Steve, I'm trying to figure out the logistics of that.
and we have started that,
Yeah.
and we have worked with guidance, both middle school and high school. We have had time together to collaborate, and I appreciate that. So middle school guidance counselors have been over to the high school, and so we've started to craft schedules for our shared teachers that it does work for them. It's not at the cost of any quality of programming. at all,
Or added personnel.
or added
Yeah.
personnel.
And would it be seventh and eighth grade schedule matching up, sixth grade will still be its own?
Well, no,
Oh,
because,
sorry.
because sixth grade flows back into the seventh and eighth grade schedule for electives. So they, yes, they run their block schedule, but they still come back into our schedule sixth period for our electives. And so that is when we also do band and choir, so they come down to sixth and seventh. So just that little piece of sixth grade. Yes, we'll have like the sixth grade schedule, seventh, eighth grade schedule, and 9th schedule.
So thinking
One
about
time.
a timeline moving forward, right? We would, obviously like full support of the board to be able to make a change like this, because it is a big change. So we would like to bring it to the board, at February 18th meeting to approve and allow the school district to make this change and, start educating our parents.
And we have a robust plan of communicating with all of our stakeholders, right? Like, my biggest fear, right, that we don't do our due diligence there, and I know with the minds that have been involved with this, we will do a good job. And so we want our kids definitely to be prepared, and, you know, we're talking curriculum already for next year, like, the nuts and bolts are in motion and have been for several months. I can tell you, again, just not being from this area, this kind of work, you should know as a board, doesn't happen in every school district, and it is a shame. It is absolutely 100% the reason why I wanted to be here. And I'm proud of put kids first. Thanks for the opportunity.
Does it look like we got any discussion items? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of January 21st, 2025?
I approve the minutes.
The vote?
Doug,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Vicki,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Denise.
Yes.
For our action needed items, I'll have the recommendation to approve the second reading of the following Neola policies in volume 36, number 1, as listed.
I move to approve the recommendation to approve the second reading.
Any discussion?
Yeah, we are not adopting these policies. Usually with the second read, we go ahead and adopt the set of policies and put them into practice. But there is one set that is just incomplete, and I just need some guidance and support from Neola before we can take it back for a second reading and adoption. So we should look to February 18th to finalize these policies.
Any more discussion? Can we get a vote?
Doug,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Vicki,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Denise.
Yes.
I have the recommendation to approve a donation in the amount of $170 from the Community Foundation through a grant from Brown County Board of Realtors for Sprinica Elementary for winter wear for the students.
Can I get a motion to accept?
So moved.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Can we vote?
Doug,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Vicki,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Denise.
Yes.
I have the recommendation to approve a donation in the amount of $170 from the Community Foundation through a grant from Brown County Board of Realtors for Van Buren Elementary for winter wear for the students.
Can I get a motion to accept?
I should do.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you. Can we vote?
Doug,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Vicki,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Denise.
Yes.
I have the recommendation to approve the maternity leave of Caitlin Carter effective approximately April 8th, 2025 through May 30th, 2025.
Can I get a motion to accept?
Move to approve the maternity leave for Caitlin Carter. Second.
Any discussion?
Hope everything goes well.
Vote?
Doug,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Vicki,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Denise.
Yes.
For the consent agenda items, personnel, we'll start with the separation of Brown County Middle School girls head track coach Cassie Pontius effective May 10th, 24. Through the transfer of Brown County High School boys head soccer coach Logan Fitz to Brown County High School boys assistant soccer coach effective February 4th, 2025.
Can I get a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Vote?
Doug,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Denise.
Yes.
Motion carries. My bad.
For the superintendent update tonight, again, I just want to express thank you to Mr. Sharoman and Mr. Steele and everybody that came together to work on high school redesign in that schedule. It is a lot of work, but it's clear that it aligns with our vision for the district. So really, really excited about that opportunity, so thank you. I also want to welcome Cinnamon is here. She will be our new computer science teacher at the middle school and the high school. So we are very excited that you are here. And then really the only other thing I'd like to update the board and the public tonight is about the upcoming potential bond projects. There's a few, it's a lot, right? Think about this presentation we had earlier. I'm not going to spend 45 minutes on this, although I could spend hours on it. So I'm just going to give a brief overview, and then because this is an update from me, I would welcome people that have questions to please ask. If I don't know them, I will figure them out and get them to everybody. So it's pretty big and it's pretty important to Brown County schools moving forward. We have an opportunity through our debt service fund, okay? So Public School Finance 101, we have an education fund. It's where we pay our teachers. The money comes in through student enrollment. We have an operations fund where that is used to operate the rest of the district. So when you think about electricity or you think about supplies, trash bags, buses, anything to operate the district, it comes out of that. That money comes from property tax. We have a referendum fund because last year we passed a referendum and that fund is legally only allowed to be used for what we campaigned or what we proposed in that spending plan, and our referendum was for wages and benefits for staff and the Career Resource Center. You cannot spend it on anything else. That is it. And then we have a rainy day fund, which we do not touch unless we absolutely have to touch that fund, okay? We also have a debt service fund, and when we take out general obligation bonds or lease bonds, it comes under that debt service, which is part of our total school tax rate. So historically, Brown County Schools has had a school tax rate of 57 cents, historically. We passed a referendum last year, and it was a 10-cent referendum. So naturally, one would think that, okay, if our school tax rate's 57 cents and we just pass this 10-cent referendum, that our new school tax rate will be 67 cents. However, that's not the case. When school districts take out bonds or these loans to do certain projects, right, we have X amount of years to pay those off. When those are paid off, we have debt that rolls off, okay? Which lowers your tax rate because it's only coming from your debt service. I cannot use debt service to pay any teachers. I cannot use debt service to pay the electric bill, right? I can't move money from debt service to go into our referendum or into our rainy day fund. It is solely for those projects or those loans that we take out. So I told you that even with the referendum, our school tax rate does not go to 67 cents. We have debt that is rolling off in 2025 that lowers our tax rate to 52 cents. I think it's 51 something, okay? We are able to take out an additional lease bond where we have two proposed projects for the board to consider that will keep our tax rate neutral at 57 cents, okay? The two projects that we have are completely separate. One of them is capital projects around the whole district, okay? And I'll walk through what those projects specifically are in that price range.
And then we also have a proposed project for the athletic facility upgrades. Okay, so we have 2 proposed projects that will be under one lease bond. Okay, they cannot cross over at all. They're 2 separate projects. Now, there's also, just to complicate it a little bit, right? There is something called a petition remonstrance and obviously a referendum. If a school district, based on a percentage of their AV, can take out a bond or a loan up to a certain threshold where it does not force you to go to a petition remonstrance or a referendum. A petition remonstrance is where there's an opportunity for the community to have a percentage of opposition within 30 days. I don't remember what the percentage is, but if a certain percentage of opposition comes within 30 days, that forces the school district to take their project to a referendum and put it on the ballot. So there's this threshold, right? Brown County Schools, based upon the AV or assessed valuation in the county, is, I think, right up to the line $6.6 million. If we wanted to do a $6.6 million project, we can do it without a petition remonstrance, which ultimately without a referendum, right? All it takes is a board to approve the resolutions to move forward with the project. Let's say that Brown County Schools wanted to do a $19 million project across the whole district, right? That's obviously above the 6.6 threshold. That forces the district to go to a petition remonstrance, which means once you file it, you have 30 days, or the community has 30 days to oppose the project. If they get the percentage to oppose it, that forces the school district, nope, you have to take it to a referendum and put them on ballot. If nobody opposes it, or you don't get to that percentage, guess what? After 30 days, the school district gets to raise the school tax and do a $19 million project. Make sense? Okay. We don't have a $19 million project. I'm not proposing a $19 million project. Very fiscally responsible. We do have a priority list across our district, and both of these projects fit in to keep our tax rate neutral at 57 cents, spread out over 10-year payments, and allows us to be able to do the things we need to do. We wouldn't be able to do out of our operations fund if we didn't have this bond, okay? So now I'm going to talk about the projects. It's one lease, right? One lease, 2 separate projects. The very first priority is when we worked around the district, obviously, was the HVAC at Van Buren. I don't think anybody will question that that's the priority. When we initially started to explore these projects, we thought that this one project was only going to be Van Buren. We were going to call it Van Buren Project. But then when we realized that we could do 2 separate ones and still keep that tax rate neutral, we decided that opened the door pretty wide for us to be able to take care of some capital projects around the entire district and then still be able to do an investment in our athletic facility upgrades. So the first priority, Van Buren Elementary HVAC upgrades. It replaces all the handling units. I think we think about the fuel oil burner. All of the things that come with an HVAC system would be replaced and brand new at HVAC. That piece of the project, this piece of the project, is anywhere from $2.5 to $2.9 million. Moving down the district with capital projects, in 2021, the district took out a bond for the high school HVAC across the whole building. Because of the limits on the bond or the scope of the project when they built it out, the science wing here at the high school and then the main gym, ops gym, and weight room did not get HVAC upgrades. So all of this side of the high school has been done. That side has not been done. I don't have a science teacher in here, but
57 degrees some days.
yeah,
Or
it is a thing.
87.
They know they did not get their wing done. So the high school science lab HVAC budget is anywhere from $750,000 to $900,000, and then the gyms and the weight room is anywhere from 1.5 to 1.9, which takes the capital projects scope anywhere from 4.7 to 5.7. That's $1 million range, right? There's $1 million range for a reason. They get into Van Buren, it's ancient, and something comes up, right? There has to be some built-in contingency to be able to deal with the unknowns, okay? That is one project. 5.7. We could go up to the threshold of 6.6. I don't need 6.6 to be able to do those projects. Are there a few other projects around each of the buildings that we could do? Absolutely. But if we can put this in our bond project that keeps the tax rate neutral, then that frees up money in my operations budget to be able to look at bathrooms at the high school, to be able to look at lighting at Van Buren in the bus lot, to be able to look at the front doors here, to be able to look at some of the things at the middle school that we weren't able to finish with the last bond that we did, right? It just opens up some space to be able to do that. So this is one project. The other project is the athletic facility upgrades. And we will start with the football field turf improvements. So right now we have grass. And we are looking to replace the grass field with turf to be able to paint on our soccer boundaries so we can also have soccer on the football field. It also opens the door to be able to have marching band competitions. It opens the door, I think, for some excitement around cheerleading. I think it's an opportunity for us to do community events. Like, I think the possibilities are endless in how we want to use that. It will be absolutely incredible. As some of you know, there is a portion of the football field that is in a floodplain. The engineers and the architects that are working on the scope of these projects, they know that, they have the plans, they have done the assessments to be able to figure out what we need to do because of that floodplain. They came back with 3 options. One option was to move the entire football field out of the floodplain, which means moving everything back. Strongly discourage that because of the amount of money it would take to just move everything, and everything being new. So we took that off the table. The other option was to be able to raise the football field X amount of feet, which is a possibility. And it's not out the window as of yet, but it will cost at least $1 million on top of the turf project to raise it. So we thought that's an added $1 million, right? It's just an added $1 million. And then the third option that the engineers came back with was to keep the field where it's at. We don't have to raise it, but we use the highest technology possible with the absorption and everything that goes into the turf to be able to have the maximum absorption. And if we were to have a flood like we had in 2019, 18, whenever it was, will there be an expense to fix it? Absolutely. Will there be an expense to fix it if we don't have turf? Absolutely, right? So we have to take that into consideration. That turf scope right there is anywhere from 1.9 to 2.2. Remember, we have that range because we have the unknowns. In addition to the scope on this project, we have the football field lighting upgrades, which is the range is 300 to 375. We basically get to keep the poles. They're just switching out to the LEDs. And then in addition to that, we would do a replacement or an upgrade to our scoreboard. Again, to be able to add LED, different lighting, cool things that you can do with technology, and then to obviously be able to have something for soccer court, right? Not just for it to say football. And then also we have an opportunity when we do that, we think about the track. So we have a track replacement option, and we have a track resurfacing option. Obviously, resurfacing is less than replacing it, so we can take a look at that if we're approved for the projects of what is really recommended for us to do. We don't wanna get in there and say, yep, we're just making this executive decision to replace it. If they get in there and they're like, you don't really have to replace it. But we don't wanna make that decision until somebody comes in and actually looks at it. So replacing the track completely is anywhere from $950 to $1.2. And then the last scope of this athletic project is the football and track new restroom concession / locker room. So you know about the campus right there, there's only one restroom. It is clear over by the school, and that's the only restroom that we have available outside. So we would like to be able to add an additional restroom, have a locker room so we can continue to grow the program and have space, and then move our concessions there. And then think about the space where our current concession is, maybe for officials or something else. But that restroom, locker room is needed right there, and it would be right in between the home and the visitor. And then, so that piece is anywhere from 1.8 to 2. So if you think a total budget for the athletic facility upgrades is anywhere from 5.2 to 6 million. So, let me come back. 2 projects is under one lease, right? One building corporation lease. Being able to do these 2 projects spread out over the debt payments over 10 years allows us to keep that at that tax neutral of 57 cents. I guess a few more things to highlight on. We also did price out baseball, turfing the baseball fields and the softball fields. I have proposed that we put that project on hold, or maybe put it back in the list of priorities down the road. If we were to add one of those projects, it takes us over that 6.6. I don't believe we should go to a petition remonstrance. I think we have debt rolling off in 2028 that opens the door for us to look at some more projects. I just don't think we need to go down that road. I think coming back, like some questions that I've received is about cost of maintenance. So our current grass fields, we have the football field, which if you haven't experienced the football field, I think one football game, Coach Bell took me out to the 50-yard line, and it's like, oh, I had no idea, right? No idea how bad of shape our football field is in. It needs some major work. We also have the soccer field that's out at Eagle Park that is very just status quo. Like, there's nothing special about playing soccer on our field out there. It needs some work. When we think about irrigation and painting and the true green or the maintenance of the lawn, right, to keep up, it's going to cost the district anywhere from $20,000 to $24,000 depending on what kind of year and weather that we have, and that's annually. We look at a turf, right, and can move our soccer games over there. I mean, we're not going to turf our 2 practice fields, but it does change some things, right? And annual maintenance of a turf field is anywhere on average from $3,000 to $5,000 a year. It's closer to $3,000 a year in the first 8 to 10 years, right? And when you get to that 10-year mark, that's where you start thinking about, okay, where are we at? And it's dependent upon, again, weather and everything that happens on the field, right? But that 10-year mark, you start looking about, okay, when do we talk about replacement? What does replacement look like? Replacement of a turf field, is that gonna cost us the $3 million again, like we did when we put it in? And no, the answer came back that it is typically at 50% that it costs of what you paid to put it in the first place. I think it's important to know that bonds, right, when we sell bonds to have the money to do these projects, let's say that the board approves the resolutions to move forward with these 2 projects. let's take the field in the floodplain, and we get down the road, and, I don't know, somebody from the state, comes in and says, you can't do this because of the floodplain. We aren't stuck with taking out money that we won't use, or we can't use because now we can't do this project, right? We just don't sell those bonds, and it lowers our principal amount, right? That's really important for people to know. In worst case scenario, right? We don't want that to happen, but at the end of the day, if that happens, we're okay. We just don't sell those bonds. The other piece that I've heard is that we just spent all of this time and effort to pass a referendum, and that referendum was for our teachers and our staff members and our Career Resource Center, and now we're gonna take money from Brown County schools or from that referendum to pay for this turf project. We're not legally allowed to do that, first and foremost, right? We cannot do it. You cannot do it with the referendum. You can't do it with your debt service, right? So there is absolutely nothing that would allow us to do that, even if we wanted to. So that is just education to the community or our families or staff or whoever to know those different processes and where they come from. Presented at Ambassadors last Friday with the adults, and went through this whole overview, and I'm sure I missed a few things, I don't know, but at the end of the conversation, someone reminded everybody in the room that, yeah, we lose kids to athletics. They're going to bigger schools, they're going to schools with turf, they're going to schools with field houses, but you know what? We have 1,463 kids right here that are worth it. And they're worth this project. They're worth the HVAC project. I think it just really, it put it all back into perspective for me. We can invest in it and see where it goes, or we can sit back and hope kids stay, or hope kids get excited, or hope this. I am strongly encouraging the board to think about the primary. So I know that was a lot. I will open it up. The board has any questions? Does anybody in the audience have questions? Again, I will try my absolute best to answer them, and if I can't, I won't be shy to tell you I don't know, but I'll figure it out.
What is the timeline on these? Like, I know the timeline for when we go through our process and get the money, but then when do you think we would be completing these projects?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that, of course, with the HVAC at Van Buren, again, that's first and foremost priority, so they will move forward with those steps. I would imagine this would be a summer project. And the athletic, the turf field, I mean, all of the conversations we've had is kind of dependent on when we move forward. So if the timeline is for us, next board meeting, February 18th, Performance Services will come and present this final scope of both projects. And then the March 3rd board meeting, the board would approve the resolutions. Once the board approves the resolutions, that allows the school district to move forward. When we know that answer, then we can work with Performance Services on, they start the bid process, right? They'll start the bid process on both projects, and they'll work on it simultaneously. We would hope for the turf, right, that if we could, we would probably strategically schedule or reschedule some of our home games, so we have fewer home games, so they could start earlier. If we could get in, maybe if we could at least have October, half of September, it might be pushing it, but if they can get in there where we're not having home games, then we would hope to have track season in spring of 2026.
So this fall, 2025. if we were.
This
On
fall
top of
twenty
things.
twenty-five, we will start our football season and our soccer season on what we have now. If we have approval, we will probably reschedule some of our home games to see how much of September can we give to contractors to start working. All projects, everything that is listed, Performance Service bids it all out, and then they present those bids, to us, so, they do that work for us. So it's not like I can say, I want you to use this company, right? They will bid it out and, they will recommend, based on quality and cost.
I remember when they did the HVAC here, that they told us that it would take a lot of planning for them to be ready to do the HVAC. I assume then that probably mean not this summer, but next summer would be Van Buren.
I'm not sure. I don't know that answer. They might, when they come present, have a better sense of that. Yeah, it just depends on what they can do ahead of time. I think Van Buren is so unknown because they don't know what they're gonna find.
They're still burning furnace oil, and it's still got a tank in their ground.
Yeah.
That's a big, we don't know.
But thank you. That's a good question. Very good. What else? Or does anybody?
It's a lot safer. The other thing I want to add to is the safety for the turf fields. It's a lot safer. If you go out there now and you look at ankles, knees, all that fun stuff, it's a minefield. You don't even want to walk on it, let alone play on it. So for what it's worth, I went to school over in Columbus. We turfed our fields, and it dramatically helped everything. So from a safety aspect, you get that bonus as well.
I can add too, the fact that many of these companies that we've talked to about the fields love the fact that we're looking at multiple programs utilizing, not just football, soccer, that the more wear and tear they can get on it actually is better for its overall life expectancy, which helps the longevity of it. So that is one thing to keep in mind. And, you know, the repairs are going to be annual for whatever things you have, but the more that it's getting used, the more that it helps, is what they tell us.
We had a student that, unfortunately I was the only one in the football program then, but we had a student that went out last, 2 years ago with an ACL injury because of our field. Our practice field, it wasn't our game field. We had one that went out this year for an ankle, still dealing with an ankle injury on our football field. We need to start thinking about the safety of our kids. And honestly, we've got kids kindergarten all the way up. I don't know of all the kids that are gotten hurt on that field, or those fields, but I know it's more than those two. The other thing that I'm looking at is, I mean, Mr. Bruder and I have had multiple discussions because I was the youth director at a point in time, and we had to schedule our home games for the youth to correspond with the high school to save costs. We couldn't host the tournament because the field was in poor shape. We actually had rather lengthy disagreement because we had an Edinburgh game that completely destroyed our home field. I think that was a 2-hour discussion, very heated, but you don't want to discourage the kids around here just because we can't invest the money in it.
Yeah, I think it's like, it's tough because when you hear two, like $5-point-something project and a $6 million project, like you hear $12 million, right? And how is Brown County Schools not paying for $12 million? That's why the tax rate is so crucial. Yes, if we let all that debt fall off that we've ever done, we keep it the 51 or 52 cents that we have, we would not be able to do these because we could not fund any of these projects. This debt service and using these bonds to keep a tax neutral of 57 cents, that's what's allowing us to do these projects, honestly. It's not like we're taking $12 million from Brown County Schools annual or $28 million budget that we have. It just isn't.
And it's the only funding vehicle we have for large projects. we don't really have, other than being able to borrow money for these kinds of loans.
Yeah, I think somebody also had asked about, well, where did these priorities come from? Like, did we just pull them out and say, I wanna do this? And no, like, we go back to Dr. Hammock, I think in 2018, had the facility study done across the entire district. From that study, it was determined, they did Helmsburg, they did Spertica, and then the high school was that next HVAC project. The middle school, back on the 2018, they still had on that priority list for secure front entrance and for HVAC. It just didn't hit the priorities of the other buildings up to that point. That's why when we did the middle school, right, that rose to the top to be able to do that. That's why Van Buren rising to the top. We also, a year and a half ago, looked at it like an investment study, as you could say, and thought about, well, HVAC is one thing, right, that we have to do. We feel really comfortable with the debt that's coming off in future years. Like, okay, where are we at actually doing some investment around the district that's not just electricity? And yeah, the athletic facilities has risen to the top. I mean, and it's not just turf, right? Like, we've got a lot of different things we would love to be able to do. Just believe that this here and this now is the best thing for Brown County schools. A lot of people talk about a field house. I would love to have a field house. They told Mark on day one, right? I want this, I want this, I want this, and that was included in that. I think there's a vision with strategy and intention that pushes that just a little bit further down the road. We think about a connector. We've talked a lot about a connector between the middle school and the high school. Yeah, it'd be awesome. I think it'd be really great. We need it for a lot of different reasons, but we don't need it right now. We don't need it right now. So for whatever it's worth, as the superintendent, yeah, I look at those priorities and then I present them to the board, and that's what I am recommending that we move forward with. Again, performance services will be here to present on the scope, what I just presented on at February 18th, and then I would recommend moving those resolutions to the March meeting for board approval. Anybody else?
Kids are worth it, but also when we proactively upgrade this athletic fields or amenities, definitely there could be the reason that we might be just bring more families back to Brown County.
If we keep 5 that we're gonna go because they get excited about it, or if we bring 5 back because it's like, oh, I can play, or I get to march on the field, or I get to cheer on the field, or whatever it may be, gosh, that's better than hoping 10 just didn't stay away, right? Like, why wouldn't we invest in it?
I think something too that I thought a lot about. I'm not from here, you know, I moved here in 2014, but one of the things that I was really encouraged about and coming back for is like the information that it's not just for our kids. So like my husband works from home and he does a lot of workout and stuff, and a lot of that happens in Columbus just because there are groups and there are people there. But a lot of people also use our track because it's free, because it's open, because it's available, and it's nice to have that. Like, and I've started going there more often myself just because. So I think it really, like, that part of it is for our schools, but also ties in the rest of the community that might not have kids in the school too. So I think it is really important to see that it's not just for the school corporation, it's also for the community.
The scoreboard would have to be approved by the town. I've asked. They consider it a sign. I don't think we'd have any problem getting something approved, but that is a step we'll have to go through.
Well, and I was gonna say, actually, we hold one of our largest community events in that facility, which is the 4th of July. And the lack of bathrooms is a real deterrent for folks. It's a long, long, hilly, bumpy way to get to the bathroom from just about anywhere. So I mean, I think it's not exactly the field, but it is just, you know, it's our facility, and we want it to look nice, and we want it to be prepared, not just for students and staff, but for the community to use.
Well, I just leave it with, if anybody here has people, friends, family in the community that have questions and you don't know how to answer them, please tell them to call me or come to the February 18th meeting, one of the two. So I'd be happy anytime, always to talk and help people understand. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Legislative update.
All right. I am the legislative liaison for the board, and it's, you know, we're right in the middle of it right now. Many of you are following what's going on in Indianapolis. What is today? February 3rd, so we are 1/4 of the way through the legislative session. And today, in fact, there was a hearing on one of the bills that we've been carefully watching. It is Senate Bill 287, which is whether or not school board races are going to be partisan or not. This has come up for the last 3 years and has been not passed, but it is still being studied, and there was a hearing about it today in the Senate Committee on Elections. And apparently they passed other bills, but they didn't pass that one, so they were trying to hopefully take some more. I don't know exactly what else happened today. But if you feel strongly about that, we have a lot of, we are nonpartisan. We don't run on a ticket, and we think that's really important for schools. We don't think that schools are a partisan issue. We think that school board members, I'll speak for myself, but also for the School Board Association, who opposes partisan elections for school board, that we don't think it should be a political issue. It should be something that is nonpartisan. And that citizens should be able to run for school board without having a party affiliation or feeling indebted to anyone for once they get here. So if you feel strongly about that, contacting the Senate Elections Committee or Senator Cook about your feelings about that, Senate Bill 287. There are a number of property tax bills you probably heard about. Some of them are over my head, I have to admit, because there's a lot going on with them. But we've got to keep our eye on that, because obviously whatever the property tax reform is can affect how much money is available for schools. So I don't know where those are right now. They've had a lot of hearings on them. But if that is something for people to be aware of, is that those bills really do matter to how much money we have available for our maintenance of our general maintenance of our buildings and our other operations budgets. Another bill to watch is that House Bill 1498 is asking that we go back to an A to F grading system for schools. And it passed through the committee 11-0. So we are likely to go back to A to F grading of schools. So, you know, if you have an opinion about that, I encourage you to talk to Representative Hall. So those are a couple of them. I will say generally, as far as the budget, the governor proposed an annual 2% increase in state tuition support formula, generally for schools, for each of the next 2 years of the budget. However, inflation is 2.5% to 3%. And the word that I've heard is that they don't think what the governor said is what's going to happen. So we really never know what that looks like until they get the state numbers of like how much tax money came in, like around, April 15th, and they have to be done by April 30th. So honestly, all the discussion that happens up to that point, it doesn't really matter much, because once they get those numbers, then they will come up with a budget at the very end.
The last budget session, this is just interesting and important that they sent out the numbers for every school district, and then superintendents noticed the discrepancies and the errors in it, and within 24 hours, enough superintendents contacted legislators and got it changed. So that tells you the power of doing that.
Yeah, advocacy is really important, so if you're interested in those things, you want to talk to me about it, I'm trying to follow those things. I'm going to go up to the State House a couple different times here in February, and try to talk to legislators and try to advocate on behalf of small rural schools, because that's who we are, and sometimes we get lost in these debates. You might have heard that there were issues about, that could close IPS schools. That doesn't affect us, by the way. That's not about us. It is about IPS and Gary School specifically. But they talk a lot about those things, and then they don't talk about the issues that we're facing. And so we want to just always make sure that we're not very many, but we can also make sure that our legislators are listening to us. So that's my update.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.